All right. All right. Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Nicole, and welcome back to our English class. I hope you are all feeling ready for some hands-on fun today. If you remember, yesterday we had a great discussion diving into these ins and outs of intonation, or not just yesterday, but the past few days, right? Or this week. How with when it comes to intonation, it's all about how our voice rises and falls and how it can really change the meaning of what we say even with the same words or same amount of words, same sentence, same phrase. We looked at different patterns and why they are so important for natural English. Well, as you can see from our slide, it's now practice time. Okay, this is where we take all that fantastic knowledge we gained yesterday and the past few days and put it into action. Okay, learning about intonation is one thing, but actually using it and making it part of your natural speaking style is where the improvement, the progress, the magic happens. Today we are going to get a lot of opportunities to try out different intonation patterns. This practice is super important because it helps us not just understand English better when others speak, but also to express ourselves more clearly, sound to sound more natural and make sure our message comes across exactly the way we intend. We will be working through some activities that will really help solidify what we have learned. So get ready to use your voices, everyone. And of course, let's jump right into our first intonation practice activity. All right. Okay, great. Now that we have set the stage, let's jump straight into our first practice activity for intonation. As you can see on the screen, our task for this first drill is identify a falling, rising, fall, rise, or rise, fall intonation. Now remember, the past 2 days when we talked about how our voice can, we remember the past 2 days again, everyone when we talked about how our voice can go down, go up, go down, then up, or go up, then down. You remember those topics? You remember those ideas that we've talked the past 2 days? That is what we are focusing on here. Now, just a short recapitulation or review. A falling intonation, it often signals completeness, certainty, or a command. A rising intonation, it usually indicates a question, uncertainty, or an unfinished thought. Fall rise can suggest doubt, reservation, or a police, polite correction. I'm sorry what happened to me. But yeah, it's a polite correction, usually, okay, in fall rise intonation. And for its, flip side, which is the rise fall intonation, it can show strong emotion, surprise, or even an emphatic statement. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'll say a sentence or a short phrase. Your job is to listen very, very carefully to the intonation pattern I use. Then I want you to tell me if you heard a falling, a rising, a fall rise, or rise fall pattern. You can just say the name of the pattern or write it down if you prefer, okay? Don't worry if it's a bit tricky at first. That is why we are practicing. No, that's the purpose of this session. So just really focus on the movement of my voice, especially at the end of the phrase. Okay? You can also, say the sentence with me or after me so that you can also practice how to say certain sentences when these intonation patterns are used. Okay? Ready? Is everyone ready? Because we're going to begin with the first one. Okay? But before that, let me check my screen real quick. Okay, it's all good. I think for a moment. No? I'm gonna be checking my screen from time to time because we don't want any discrepancies or minor inconveniences to happen, no, because we don't know how this um technical thing will happen or will go on today in today's session. So my screen is reflecting the same as in our session in our live stream. So we're going to continue with the first sentence since it's all good. Okay, could you pass the salt? Now the simple sentence is a perfect starting point because it is something we say most of the time, especially in the context of cooking. If you're cooking with someone, basic for instance, no, if you're cooking with someone, for instance, then you could be able or you have had um mentioned or said this sentence or something similar to this sentence, right? But how we say it, specifically how our voice finishes the sentence, it really makes a difference. Okay, I'm going to say, could you pass the salt? Now, when I do, I want you to imagine my voice as a little ball rolling on a table. Okay, just hold on, hold on. It will make sense eventually. Here, does it roll off the edge and fall down? Does it roll up a little ramp and rise? Or does it do something more complex, like go down, then up, which is our fall rise, or up, then down, which is our rise fall? Pay very close attention to the very last syllable. I'm going to highlight it for you, salt. And what happens to the pitch of my voice right at the very end of the word? Of that word, specifically salt. So is it going higher, lower, or doing a curve? Listen very, very carefully to this first utterance. Okay? Okay. Could you pass the salt? Could you pass the salt? Again, could you pass the salt? All right. Now think about the function of this sentence. When do we usually say could you pass the salt? When? What do you think? Well, for me, I say it when I want someone to give me something, right? Especially it's talking about salt. So if I want someone to give me the salt, I would say this particular sentence or similar sentence. So basically, it is a request, a question that implies we are expecting a response or maybe an action from the other person. So, does a voice that goes down at the end usually sound like it's asking for something, or more like it's just finishing a thought? Now, everyone, usually if our voice goes down, it sounds like we are done or giving an order. But here, we are reaching out, extending an invitation for action. Okay, let's try it again. Focus your attention completely on this sound. Forget the words for a moment and just listen to the melody of my voice, especially that final note. Okay, could you pass the salt? Again, could you pass the salt? One more time. Could you pass the salt? All right. Do you hear that subtle upward movement? It's like my voice is lifting, asking, are you with me? Will you help me? If it were falling intonation, it might sound more like a firm command, like pass the salt. No? But that's not usually how we ask politely, is it? So, considering this is a polite request and listening to that final upward trajectory of or final upward point of my voice, that vocal lift, or rise, which of our four intonation patterns do you think is at play here? Is it falling, rising, fall, rise, or rise, fall? Take your time, think about the feeling, the function, and most importantly, the sound. What's your final answer, everyone? You can always say that to me. What do you think is the intonation pattern used here in this first sentence? Again, I am doing some polite request. Which intonation pattern should I use? It is. Yes, it is rising intonation. Correct. Because in the stressed word here, no, the one I highlighted, salt, I said it in a way that it is rised or risen. Okay. So could you pass the salt again? Could you pass the salt? So it is risen. It is rise. Okay? It is rising, I mean. So that is a rising intonation. An example of rising intonation. Let me write it for you. Rising. Okay? It's good. All right. We're all good with this. Okay? Let's move on. For a moment, let me just try to draw the line that signifies uh for some reason I cannot draw. Mhm. It's a lot better, I think, if I draw the lines, the arrows, the symbols for this one, so that it would help you be guided. Hmm. Let me just try inserting some lines for a moment, everyone. Some symbols. Maybe some. All right. For some reason, I cannot draw, but yeah, let's move on to another sentence. Again, could you pass the salt is using a rising intonation pattern. Okay. Next. All right. He's already gone. Very simple. This is our next sentence for practice. As you can see on the screen, it is he is already gone or he's already gone. Now, just like before, I'm going to say this sentence. I want you to really focus your attention. Imagine again that little ball rolling on the table. Does my voice drop down at the end, signaling the thought is, already complete, or does it go up, suggesting more is coming for or more is coming or asking a question. Remember, pay closest attention to the very last word. Okay, I'm gonna highlight it for you again. And that is gun. Okay, the word is gun. And of course, let's focus on how its pitch moves here so that we can identify what kind of intonation pattern is utilized or is used. Okay, listen carefully. This is how I read it. He's already gone. Again, he's already gone. One more time. He's already gone. All right. What's your gut feeling after that, you know, third listen, first, second, and even third listen? Does it feel like my voice is delivering a piece of information that is already finished, or maybe a fact that is confirmed? Or does it feel like there's an upward lift as if I'm still questioning or waiting for something? Okay, let's quickly recall our four intonation patterns here. Now, falling, again, falling intonation is when our voice goes down, right? Which is often for statements, commands, WH questions. Rising is when our voice goes up, which is often for yes or no questions, uncertainty, lists, polite requests. Fall rise is when our voice goes down and then up, which is often for hesitation, polite disagreement, implying more. And lastly, rise fall is when our voice goes up and then down, which is often for strong emotion, or surprise, or like clear finality. Given that the sentence is a straightforward statement, telling someone a piece of information that he's already gone, which intonation pattern usually fits that function of conveying completion or certainty? What do you think? Let's listen to it one more time. Really try to trace the path of my voice and that final word. Does it sound final, like a period at the end of sentence, or not? Okay. He's already gone. Again, he's already gone. So, based on how my voice moved, especially at the very end, and considering that this is a direct statement of fact, which intonation pattern do you think I used? Let me hear your thoughts. What do you think is the intonation pattern I've used here? He's already gone. Is my voice, did my voice go up, or go down in the highlighted word here, which is gone? Did it go up or go down? He's already gone. He's already gone. Is it go up? Is it going up or going down? He's already gone. Again, he's already gone. What do you think? Let me hear your thoughts, everyone, for this simple sentence. This is going down. So, meaning this is a falling intonation pattern, or it is using a falling intonation pattern. So, our answer here is falling intonation pattern. Okay, let me highlight that for you. My voice here is going down. Okay, it's just, a simple statement. So, no need for what do you call that? No need for rising your tone for this highlighted word or the last or the end word in the sentence. So that is falling intonation. It's already using falling intonation. All right? Great. Let's move on to the next sentence. Another simple sentence we have here. You could ask her. Again, you could ask her. This one is really interesting because how you say it can completely change the nuance, okay? Or the specificities of the sentence. It's not always a straightforward statement or question. So, as always, I'm going to say the sentence and I want you to really, really tune into the melody of my voice, especially on the last word, okay? The last word here is her. Let me highlight that for you. All right. So notice, does my voice clearly go down, clearly go up, or does it perform, a little dance, that dancey, maybe a dip and then a rise, or a rise and then a dip. Okay? Imagine that little rolling ball again. What kind of path does it take at the very end? Okay? Listen very carefully now. You could ask her. Again, you could ask her. One more time, you could ask her. Okay? What's your initial impression? Does it sound like a very firm final statement? Like, this is the definite answer? Or does it sound like a straightforward yes or no question? Or perhaps does it convey a feeling of making a suggestion or giving advice that's a bit open ended, maybe even with a slight implication or a touch of reservation? Like, yes, that's an option, but maybe there's more to consider, or that's a possibility. Okay, what do you think is the answer here? Again, we have four intonation patterns: falling, rising, fall, rise, and rise, fall. Falling is when our voice goes down, rising goes up, fall, rise goes down and up, rise, fall goes up, then down. Okay? Considering that subtle feeling of giving advice or a suggestion, most likely, maybe not with the absolute enthusiasm, but as a valid option. How does my voice on that final word, her, does it just go down or does it go up? Or do you hear two movements, a drop and then a little lift? Maybe? Okay, let's listen to it one more time. Really focus on the journey of my voice over the last word. You could ask her. You could ask her. All right. Based on that careful listening and thinking about the nuance of a sentence like this often carries a suggestion, a hesitant possibility. Which intonation pattern do you think best describes what you just heard? Go ahead and tell me what you have identified. What do you think is our intonation pattern used here? That is what? Okay, I'm gonna give you maybe 10 seconds to think. Not to type in your answers or 20 seconds. I'm gonna be generous. All right. 20 seconds is up. What do you think is the answer? That is a full rise intonation. Okay. Why do you think so? Why do I think so? Well, it's not a for starters, it's not a firm final statement which is used in falling intonation. If it were, your voice would just drop at the end, right? Which signals a completed thought, but there's a little lift after the drop, which tells me it's not simply a statement. It's not also a straightforward yes or no question, which is a characteristic of rising intonation. Your voice does not just go up at the end like her, her, if you were asking for clarification. And it perfectly matches the suggestion with implication feeling, which is, of course, the characteristic of what? Full rise intonation. I clearly I clearly stated that I clearly said it with my pitch going down slightly on her and then almost immediately rise up a bit. Okay? That dip and then a little lift is exactly what a fall rise intonation does. Okay? So when I said it, it really did convey that nuance of or an implication or a meaning of yes, that's an option, but maybe there's more to consider, or that's a possibility. It wasn't a forceful command, nor was it just a simple question. It had that polite, open ended quality, almost like you were leaving the door open for further discussion or other ideas. So the fall rise perfectly captured that slightly hesitant suggestion. So our identification here is fall rise intonation. Okay, let me write that down for you. Polarized intonation, okay? All right, good. Let's move on to another sentence. What do we have here? It's a question. How did you know that? Mm-hmm. How did you know that? All right. This sentence is a fantastic example because it highlights a key general rule in English intonation for a very common type of question. As we discussed yesterday, when we ask a WH question, those questions start with words or like who, what, where, when, why, and even how, we are typically asking for new specific information. We're not usually looking for a simple yes or no question or answer, right? We want details, we want explanations, we want reasons. So now I'm going to say, how did you know that? I want you to literally draw the path of my voice in the air with your finger as I say it, especially on that final word that. Let me highlight it for you. Is your finger going down, going to travel downwards, as if my voice is settling down and finishing the question? Or is it going to swoop upwards, leaving the question hanging as if expecting a simple yes or no? Okay? Or maybe it's going down and then rising and rising, or rising, then going down. So let's try to hear it one more time or many more times. How did you know that? How did you know that? One more time. How did you know that? What's the very first thing your ear tells you happened to my voice on the word that? Did it lift? Did it drop? Or did it do a double movement? Like lift and then drop or lift. Now let's think about the purpose of this question. If I were to say, did you know that? That would be a yes or no question. And my voice would typically rise, right? Like, did you know that? Like that, like the one I said it earlier. But here, I'm not asking if you knew. I'm asking how you knew. I'm seeking the method, the reason. When we seek that kind of specific information, our voice usually signals that the question is complete and we are waiting for a detailed answer, right? Let's quickly put our options in mind again. Falling goes down, rising goes up, fall, rise, dips, then rises, rise, fall, rises, then dips. Okay. When I said, how did you know that? How did you know that? Did my voice communicate a strong emotion that made it go up then down, or did it sound like I was implying something, making it fall then rise? Or was it just a straightforward question that settled down at the end, signaling, okay, I've asked my complete question, now I await your explanation? Let's hear it a couple more times. Really try to hum the melody of the last word, which is that, in your head, okay? Is it a descending hum or an ascending one? Or is it, going down or going up, basically? Okay? How did you know that? How did you know that? Considering the type of question it is, asking for specific information and a clear downward movement form of my voice at the end, which intonation pattern do you confidently identify here? What do your expert ears tell you? No? What do you think is the answer here? I've mentioned that it is asking for specific information and there is a clear downward movement of my voice. If it is downward and if it is asking for specific information and if it is um another character trait here that says that it's this kind of intonation pattern is that it's using a WH question, and that is how. Okay? What kind of intonation pattern use that? All right? That is a falling intonation. You should be able to confidently say it's a falling intonation, okay? Now, the initial impression here, everyone, I would assume that the initial impression, the very first thing that your ear told you was that your voice clearly that was my voice clearly dropped on the word that. There was no lift, no double movement. So the purpose of the question is that yes, this is a classic WH question. You are not asking for a simple yes or no answer here, like did you know that I've mentioned earlier. Instead, I'm just looking for detailed information, the method of knowing. So when we ask for new specific details, a falling intonation signals that the question is complete and we are ready for the explanation. Okay? So we try to rule out other patterns so that there's clear understanding here. It definitely wasn't rising. Maybe you're considering rising, but it definitely wasn't rising. My voice did not go up at the end, which would suggest a yes or no question or uncertainty. Okay? There was also no dip and then a rise, so it wasn't fall rise. That would imply hesitation or a subtle implication, which was not present here. And it, of course, it did not convey strong emotion or surprise with an up then down movement. So it wasn't rise fall also. So the way I said, how did you know that? Sounded very direct and complete, like I've asked my question and now I'm expecting a full answer. So my voice, it settled down, signaling, okay, my question is done. Tell me the details. No? That is what I am implying here. What I am meaning here. So, of course, I believe your expert ears definitely identify this sentence a falling intonation. Okay? All right. Let's move on to the next sentence. Another sentence. There's a couple more sentences here. I intentionally provided, really a lot of sentences so that we can practice, we can dissect how these intonation patterns work in a sentence. Okay? Now, this is another sentence. Do you want tea or coffee? Do you want tea or coffee? Now, this is what we call an alternative question. We are offering choices and expecting a selection. Now, the intonation pattern for these kinds of questions is not just one simple rise or fall over the whole sentence. It actually has a distinct movement on each of the alternatives you are offering. Now, I'm going to say this sentence for you. As I do, I want you to focus very closely on the word tea. Let me highlight that one for you. Tea and then the word coffee. Okay? How does my voice move on tea and then how does it move on coffee? Picture again two little rolling balls. Here, everyone, one for tea and one for coffee. What path does each one take? So, since we are focusing on two words here, and then I mentioned that um, there's two rolling balls, so we are ruling out the possibility that this is either a falling intonation or a rising intonation. So, our answer here could be fall rise or rise fall intonation. Okay. All right. Listen incredibly close now. Do you want tea or coffee? Do you want tea or coffee? Again, do you want tea or coffee? What did you notice about the movement of my voice on tea? Did it go up? And then what about on coffee? Did it go down? Does that pattern make sense for offering a choice where you lift your voice on the first option as if to say, is this the one? And then drop your voice on the last option, indicating, okay, choose one. And that's the end of my question. What do you think? Again, let's quickly refresh our memory of the main four overall patterns, intonation patterns. But remember, this type of question is a combination of movements. So let's just focus on fall rise and rise fall. Fall rise, as the name implies, your voice dips and then rises. Rise fall, as the name implies, your voice rises and then dips. Okay? So for fall rise, you usually try to show hesitation or implication. For rise fall, strong emotion. Usually. But there are other um ways or other implications or other meaning that you're trying to convey here. That's just our common message, which is strong emotion. Now, in an alternative question like this, we're not just looking for one single final movement, but the characteristic pattern across the choices. So, does the first choice typically rise, leaving the door open for another option? And does the final choice typically fall, bringing the question to a definitive close once a selection is made? So, let's listen it a couple more times. Really try to segment the sounds and feel the independent movement on each of the choices. Do you want tea or coffee? Do you want tea or coffee? Based on your careful listening and understanding that this is an alternative question, how would you describe the intonation pattern used on the two options, tea and coffee? What did you hear on the first choice and what did you hear on the second choice? Go ahead and tell me what you have identified. I'm going to give you 20 seconds for that. All right, time's up. What do you think is the answer here? What kind of combination pattern, when it comes to intonation pattern, is the sentence showing? Do you want tea or coffee? Again, do you want tea or coffee? Now, this is what? Do you want tea or coffee? This is what? A rise, full intonation. So let me type that for you. Rise, full intonation. Okay? So this is an example of rise, full intonation, everyone, because when in the on T, no, and on the first highlighted word T, my voice clearly went up, right? It had a rising intonation in the first option. It felt like I am presenting the first choice, leaving it open like, is this it or is there another? Now on the word coffee, My voice clearly went down. It had a falling intonation on the second, final option. This felt like the end of question or the final option. It indicates that you've presented all the choices and are now awaiting a definitive answer. Okay, so do you want tea or coffee? Do you want tea or coffee? So for an alternative question like this, the pattern I identified, the pattern I identified here, or maybe you identified also, is a rising intonation on the first alternative, tea, followed by a falling intonation on the final alternative, coffee. This makes perfect sense for offering choices as I have described. The rise on the first option signals that more options might follow, and then the fall on the last option brings the question to a polite and complete close. Close, I'm sorry. Complete close, okay? Which of course expects a selection. It's really neat how the intonation guides the listener through the options, okay? So again, this is a rise fall intonation. Okay? Are you correct, everyone? Let me just check. Are you correct with your answer? Is it rise fall intonation? Did you get it correct? Did you also answer rise fall intonation? I hope so. All right, let's move on to the next sentence. Well, I'm not sure. Let me just because I let me just my screen is corrupt, so let me just oh no. Let me just edit this one for a moment. All right, everything's good now. Let's continue. Again, the sentence is, well, I'm not sure. Well, I'm not sure. This is one of those phrases in English that beautifully demonstrates how our vocal melody can add layers of meaning. When someone says, I'm not sure, they're not just stating a fact. They are often conveying a sense of hesitation, a weighing of options, or even a polite way to say maybe, but there's a catch. So it's not a definitive yes and it's not a strong no. It's in between that. Now, when I say it, I want you to imagine my voice as what kind of analogy is this? But yeah, let me just, hold on for a moment. That is, you can imagine my voice as a tiny bird. Don't know, but yeah, does that bird fly straight down to land and stop? Or does it just fly straight up into the sky? Or does it take a little dip first as if it's considering landing, but then it lifts itself up just a tiny bit as if it's not quite ready to settle? Or perhaps it's suggesting something else without saying it directly. So focus all your concentration on that final word, sure. Let me highlight that for you. Now, what is the journey of the pitch of my voice right there? Listen incredibly close now. Well, I'm not sure. Again, well, I'm not sure. One more time. Well, I'm not sure. What did you perceive? Did it feel like a completed, decisive statement where my voice simply went down and ended? Or did it feel like a pure question where my voice simply went up and stayed high? You should notice that neither of those perfectly describes it, right? Instead, you should detect that subtle downward movement like a little sigh of uncertainty, but then crucially, that small upward lift. That lift is what signals this isn't the absolute end of thought, or that there's an underlying implication, a polite doubt, or a lingering but. Okay, so this specific vocal pattern is a superstar. Let me just use that word. Superstar for politeness, I guess. So for hinting could also mean for expressing reservation. It could also, express that. It's how we say yes, but there's a nuance. There's something in it, or I'm considering it, but I'm not fully convinced. No, it leaves the conversation slightly open, which invites further discussion or clarification rather than closing it off with a definitive, I don't know. So let's really hone in on that final word. I'll say the phrase a couple more times. Close your eyes if it helps you focus purely on the sound and try to feel that slight dip and then that little bounce up on sure. Okay? Well, I'm not sure. Well, I'm not sure. Well, I'm not sure. Did you hear the characteristic of a of an intonation pattern here? What do you think is that intonation pattern? Let me hear your thoughts. What kind of intonation pattern is used here? What do you think? What kind of intonation pattern did we use here? It is a full rise intonation. Let me type that for you. Again, that is a full rise intonation. So that subtle downward sweep followed by the gentle upward lift, that's the sound of hesitation, of polite uncertainty, of a suggestion that carries a little extra meaning. So based on the deep voice, sound, and the function, the intonation pattern we identified here for well, I'm not sure, is full rise intonation. Okay? That is a full rise intonation. So here's why I said, or I'm sure this is a full rise intonation, and I think we share similar thoughts. Hope so. The initial dip and the crucial lift here, you could distinctly hear my voice go down, slightly unsure, as if settling into a thought, but then immediately it performed a small upward lift. That little bounce up I mentioned was definitely here. No? It's not just a drop or falling intonation. If it were a plain falling intonation, it would sound much more definitive, like I'm not sure. Something like that. But my voice didn't just stop there. That little rise kept it open. So it's not just a rise also here. No, it certainly didn't sound like a question asking for confirmation where my voice would just go straight up. So the nuance perfectly matches fall rise intonation, the feeling I've described, which is hesitation, politeness, implying there might be more to consider or leaving the conversation slightly open. It is precisely what the fall rise intonation conveys. It's that subtle yes, but, or maybe but kind of sound. It suggests that I am not fully closing the door on the topic or that there's a reason for the uncertainty. Okay? All right. Okay, that's great. So that is for this sentence. Again, the answer is well, I'm not sure. Fall rise intonation. Did we get it right? Did you get it right, everyone? Everything's good? Everybody following? All right, let's continue with another sentence here. Okay. All right. The sentence here is close the door, please. So this is a request. No, it's obviously a request, a polite command. So when we give a command or make a direct request, even when we add please, to make it polite, there's a very typical intonation pattern that makes it sound like a complete and clear instruction. I'm going to say this sentence for you now. I want you to focus all your attention on the very last word. Again, please. Does my voice simply go down, signaling a clear, complete instruction, or does it go up, making it sound like a question asking for confirmation? Or does it do something else, like a dip and rise? Or imagine that little vocal bird I've mentioned earlier. Is it flying down to land definitely, or is it trying to fly up? Okay, listen closely now. Close the door, please. Close the door, please. One more time. Close the door, please. What was in your what is your immediate impression of how my voice ended that sentence, or how my voice is sounding in the word please? Did it sound like I was asking for a yes or no answer, or did it sound like I was giving a clear instruction and then the sentence simply ended, signaling completion? Okay, think about the function of a command or a polite request. It's usually meant to be direct and to elicit an action, not necessarily to invite further questions about the command itself. So this particular intonation pattern is incredibly common for commands and direct requests in English. It gives a sense of finality and directness even when we soften it with words like please. If my voice went up at the end, it would be like close the door please. Close the door please. It would sound more like that, okay? It would sound like I'm asking for permission, or I'm unsure if you even heard me, but we're like looking for the direct, polite instruction. Okay, let's really hone in on that last word. I'll say the phrase a couple more times. Close your eyes if it helps you filter out distractions and just, focus purely on the sound of my voice's pitch on please. Okay, close the close the door, please. Close the door, please. Close the door, please. Did you hear that clear downward movement? That sense of the voice settling and completing the instructions. So based on that deep dive into the sound and the function of a polite command, what kind of intonation pattern did you identify for this sentence? What did your sharp ears tell you about how my voice ended that phrase? What do you think? Let me hear your thoughts, everyone. Let me hear your thoughts on this. Is it a falling intonation, a rising intonation, fall rise intonation, or rise fall intonation pattern? What do you think? All right, that is a falling intonation. Correct. So here's our reasoning. No, it has a clear downward movement. The very first thing that your ear could be registering was a definite, descent or downward movement in my pitch on the word please. My voice clearly dropped, signaling completion. Also, there's function of a direct request or command. As I have explained to you, even with the word please, this is an instruction meant to elicit an action. A falling intonation naturally conveys that directness and finality. It's like saying, "This is what I'm asking you to do," and that's the end of the instruction. Okay? For the other patterns, we try to rule them out. It absolutely did not sound like a rising intonation, which would make it sound like you were asking for permission or you were unsure. Like, close the door, please. Close the door, please. So that wasn't the case at all. There was no dip and then a rise also, so it wasn't fall rise. That would imply hesitation or a hidden meaning, which was not the intention here. It also didn't convey strong emotion with an up then down movement. So no rise fall in this case also. So the way I said it, even with the politeness, still felt like a clear, complete instruction. My vocal bird, let's just say, vocal bird, definitely flew straight down to land, definitively on please. Okay, so our identification for close the door, please, is clearly a falling intonation. All right, are we clear on that? Did you get it right? Is it a falling intonation also in your end? Let me write that for you, okay? This is a falling intonation. All right. Okay, I think we got it right. So let's move on to still another sentence. All right. Really? That's amazing. So this phrase is about expressing strong surprise or astonishment. We have two parts, no? Two parts here. The initial really, let me highlight that for you. Oh, okay. And then the exclamation. That's amazing. Let me just focus on amazing, okay? How we use our voice in each part really tells the listener how surprised or amazed we truly are. So I'm going to say this whole sentence for you now. I want you to pay extremely close attention to the intonation on really first, that's first, and then shift your focus immediately to amazing on the second part. So what kind of, vocal journey, intonation pattern does each of those words take? Does my voice rise sharply or perhaps rise and then fall dramatically? You can think about how your voice would naturally move if you were genuinely shocked or incredibly impressed. Okay? Listen incredibly close now. Really? That's amazing. Really? That's amazing. Really? That's amazing. What did you notice about really? Did my voice just go straight up as if asking for confirmation, but with a tone of disbelief? And then what about amazing? Did your ears detect a powerful vocal surge upwards and then a strong decisive drop downwards, like hitting a drum at the end of a big declaration, maybe? No? Analogy. Anyway, that's the sound of strong emotion being expressed. So, This particular combination of intonation patterns is brilliant for conveying genuine, impactful surprise and excitement. That initial really sets up the feeling of disbelief or curiosity, and then that's amazing absolutely seals it with a strong emotional statement. It's not just a flat statement, and it's not a simple question. It's a vocal exclamation mark. So there is strong emotion here. And what kind of intonation pattern is showcasing a strong emotion? I've mentioned it earlier. Strong emotion, what kind of intonation pattern is using that? Is used in that? That is that made okay. Let's really hone in on both parts of this phrase. I'll say the whole thing a couple more times. Close your eyes if it helps you focus purely on the sound. Try to map out the distinct vocal movements for really and then for amazing, okay? Really? That's amazing. Really? That's amazing. Really? That's amazing. Okay. Based on the deep dive into the sound and considering that this phrase is all about expressing strong surprise and awe or strong emotion, basically, what kind of intonation pattern did you identify for really and then for that's amazing? What did your incredibly sharp and attentive ears tells you about how my voice shaped those words? What do you think? Really, that's amazing. Okay. All right. That is a rise fall intonation. Very good, everyone. That's great. So we've got a clear identification for both parts. For really, no, you heard a clear and distinct rising intonation, right? Your voice went straight up on really, so it wasn't just. Sorry for that. So it wasn't just a simple question. It had the tone of disbelief and surprise, like maybe, is that truly so? Wow. No, you're just wow. So really, so for that's amazing, especially an amazing, I heard or you heard also no a strong and emphatic rise full intonation. Your voice started quite high on amazing if you tried to say it, and then took a powerful decisive plunge downwards. It was like a vocal exclamation mark, conveying genuine awe and strong emotion. Okay, I could really feel the impact of the surprise in that dramatic rise and fall when I said it or when I mentioned the sentence. So yes, you're absolutely right, everyone, about how this combination works. The initial really, with its rising intonation, sets up the question of disbelief or wonder, perfectly leading into that's amazing with its powerful rise fall, which then emphatically expresses the strong surprise and excitement. It's not just a statement or a simple question, it's a dynamic, let's just say dynamic vocal expression of astonishment or of shock. So to summarize, really is rising intonation. That's amazing is riseful intonation. You delivered it perfectly for conveying that strong emotional impact. Okay? Try to say that word and you will the sentence I'm saying. I mean, try to read the sentence, say the sentence, you get that riseful pattern or intonation pattern. Let me highlight or write that for you. Riseful intonation pattern. Okay. Good. Okay? Let's have the next sentence. When will they arrive? Again, when will they arrive? This is a WH question, no? Starting with the word when. Remember when we ask a question like this, a WH question, we are typically looking for specific information, a detail, a fact. So we're not usually expecting just a simple yes or no in response. I'm going to say this sentence now. As you listen, I want you to direct all your attention to the very last word, arrive. Let me just highlight that one for you. Arrive. So what does the pitch of my voice do right there? Does it swoop down, signaling that the question is complete and I am walking or waiting for a direct answer? Or does it rise up, leaving the question feeling open or seeking a simple confirmation? Imagine again that little vocal bird, everyone. Is it diving to a clear landing spot or is it fluttering upwards? What do you think? Listen incredibly close now. When will they arrive? When will they arrive? When will they arrive? Again, when will they arrive? What was your immediate impression of how my voice finished that sentence? Did it sound like I was asking for a yes or no confirmation, or did it sound like I was telling a complete question, expecting, a specific date or time as the answer? and then my voice simply settled at the end? What do you think? Think about the function of a one question, of our WH question. It is seeking a precise piece of information, and the intonation often reflects that directness and finality. So, this particular intonation pattern is very characteristic of direct information seeking questions in English. It provides a sense of closure to that question, indicating that you've finished asking and are now awaiting the specific details. If my voice were to go up, when will they arrive? When will they arrive? When will they arrive? Again, when will they arrive? Okay, you can even try humming, the melody. But, when I mentioned when will they arrive or when will they arrive, it might sound like I'm uncertain or maybe even repeating the question in disbelief, but not like a standard information request. So we are ruling out the possibility of rising intonation because it's not really the proper way to say it. Let's really hone in that last word. Okay, I'll say the phrase a couple more times. Let's listen to the melody of the last word in your head after I say it, okay? Is it a tune that goes down or not really goes up, or maybe it goes down and then up and then and then down? When will they arrive? When will they arrive? When will they arrive? When will they arrive? Did you hear that clear downward movement? That sense of voice completing the question and expecting a direct answer. So, based on the deep dive into the sound and the function of a standard WH question, what kind of intonation pattern did you identify for the sentence? What did your sharp ears tell you about how my voice ended that phrase? What is it? What's your answer, everyone? It is, of course, it's clearly a falling intonation. Very good. So there's clear downward movement. Your immediate impression could be that my voice clearly dropped on arrive. There was a definite descent or downward movement in pitch, which signals that the question was complete. There's also the function of a WH questions, right? I've mentioned it earlier, and also in our discussion the past few days. So this when question is all about seeking specific information, a time, a date. The following intonation perfectly matches this function as it indicates a direct, finished question awaiting for a factual answer, not just, a simple yes or no answer, yes or no question. Now, for the other patterns, so it absolutely did not sound like rising intonation. We've already talked about that. There was no dip and then a rise, so it wasn't a fall rise. This pattern carries nuances of hesitation or implication, which were not present here, and it certainly didn't convey strong emotion with an up then down movement. So no rise fall also. So yes, this is a clearly falling intonation pattern. Okay. All right, let's move on to the next, and I guess the last sentence that we will be having for today's session. Okay, I suppose we could wait. Again, I suppose we could wait. So, you're all doing incredibly well with the precise listening, everyone. So, let's tackle our final sentence for this segment or for this session. This one I've mentioned. I suppose we could wait. So, it's like, well, I'm not sure. It is an excellent way for showing how much nuance intonation can add to our messages, okay? Again, I suppose we could wait. This is a phrase we often, or maybe most of us, often use when we're agreeing to something, but perhaps not with absolute enthusiasm or when we are just suggesting an option that might not be our first choice. It carries a sense of reluctant acceptance or a mild suggestion with a hint of, but. Now, when I say it, I want you to completely immerse yourselves in the sound, okay? Focus every ounce of your attention on the very last word. Wait, let me highlight it for you. Okay. What is the precise movement of my voice as speech on that word? Is it rising, falling, rise, fall, or fall, rise? Okay? Listen. I suppose we could wait. Again, I suppose we could wait. I suppose we could wait. What was your immediate impression, everyone? Did my voice convey a strong, definite statement as if saying, yes, we will wait, absolutely? Or did it convey a simple yes or no question? Or did it have that distinct sound of contemplation, of acknowledging an option, but perhaps not with full conviction, leaving a slight, opening or implied, however, that feeling of, okay, I guess that's an option. or maybe it's just, conveying a strong emotion. So the specific intonation pattern is a master at conveying a sense of hesitation, a polite reservation, or a reluctant agreement. It's how we signal that we're accepting something, but perhaps with a slight mental asterisk beside it, like a yes, but, you know, that is implying that kind of message without, actually saying the but. So again, let me read it, or um let me say it again. I suppose we could wait. I suppose we could wait. Did you hear the characteristic of an intonation pattern? What is the intonation pattern? What is the intonation pattern used here? Is it fall, rise, or rise, fall? What do you think? Do you think? I suppose we could wait. Yes, that is. All right, fantastic. Okay, great job, everyone. That is a fall rise intonation pattern. So it's clearly showing a fall rise intonation pattern. Let me just write it down for you. Fall rise intonation pattern. So there's that subtle downward sweeps followed by the gentle upward lift, right? That's the sound of reluctant acceptance or of a thoughtful pause or of a suggestion that is not entirely enthusiastic. So we can base on that deep dive into the sound and the nuanced meaning of the phrase. Like that is, of course, a full rise intonation pattern. So I would assume that your immediate impression on what was consistently clear on every listen was that my voice performed that unique dance I have described earlier. It took a slight dip downwards on weight as if acknowledging the option, but then crucially it gently lifted upwards. That fluttered just a little bit up as if it's still hovering with a thought. That is, how we spat it on. There, and also, not to rule out other intonation pattern. This is not a definitive statement, which is the characteristic of falling intonation pattern. If it were just a falling intonation, it would sound like a firm, unchangeable decision, like we will wait, we will wait. But your voice, here, if you try to say it, it would clearly that it did not end there, right? That subtle rise kept it open. Also, there's this is not a question, a rising intonation pattern. It absolutely did not sound like you were asking, like, should we wait? Where that's how we should say it. No, that's the sentence for the rising intonation pattern. So that's not it. So it perfectly matches the full rise intonation pattern. The feeling I've described, reluctant acceptance, mild suggestion, a hint of but, or okay, I guess that's an option. No, that is precisely what the full voice intonation communicates. It's the sound of hesitation, of a polite reservation, or an agreement that is not fully enthusiastic. It leaves it leaves that slight opening, that implied asterisk, inviting further um inviting, further consideration without explicitly stating a contradiction. So we made that characteristic fall rise perfectly clear, right? Even with its subtlety. So I believe you could distinctly hear that downward sweep followed by the gentle upward lift on weight, okay? It absolutely conveys that thoughtful pause and the nuanced acceptance. So for I suppose we could wait, we can say it's a fall rise intonation. Okay? All right. Okay. That is a good practice, everyone. All right. So to summarize everything, no, this is just quick. I'm just going to read this one. Could you pass the salt? Rising. He's already gone. Falling. Okay, you could ask her. Fall, rise. How did you know that? Rise, fall. Do you want tea or coffee? Rising. Well, I'm not sure. Fall, rise. Close the door, please. Falling. Really? That's amazing. Rise, fall. When will they arrive? Falling. And I suppose we could wait. Actually, it's in wait. That's the wrong. I know. Okay. This also. So that is these were our the sentences that we've tackled or we've dissected or we've tried to identify the intonation pattern that is used in in these sentences. Okay. So that's a wrap up for today, everyone. Give yourselves a huge round of applause. No, that was absolutely excellent work today. You really dug deep into the fascinating world of intonation, and your listening skills are incredibly sharp. We covered so much ground, from the clear finality of falling intonation in WH questions and commands to the distinct rise and fall in alternative questions, and especially the incredibly nuanced fall rise pattern that adds so much politeness, hesitation, and subtle implication to our words. You've really shown that you can hear those tiny yet powerful dances and journeys of the voice. Okay, now be reminded that understanding these intonation patterns is not just about sounding correct; it's about truly understanding the meaning and the feeling behind what people say, and then being able to convey your own meaning with precision and naturalness. It's a huge step in becoming a more effective and emphatic communicator in English. So keep practicing these listening skills, everyone, even in your everyday conversations. Try to draw the intonation you hear, and you'll be amazed at how quickly you start noticing these patterns everywhere. Thank you so much for your focus, for your participation, and for your dedication today. You were all fantastic. I'll see you next time for more exciting explorations in English. Have a wonderful day. Okay? Good night and see you next week. Have a great weekend ahead. Goodbye, everyone.